Hey, Mr. Builder, what do you charge for a recessed light in the ceiling? I charge $185. $185? I saw it at Home Depot for $35.
Yeah.
How do you answer that? What's the response? Well, the response is, if you want a light in a box from Home Depot, it's $35. If you want one with an electrician, a 16-foot ladder to put it up in the ceiling, a building permit to allow me to do it, a warranty, a trim, a bulb, that's $185. It's always easier to sell more stuff to an existing customer than it is to find a new customer.
All right, you brought it up. The 4 things, how to make more money. How do we do it for home builders?
Okay, I'll give it to you in the right order.
Okay.
Because order matters. Number 1.
I'm so excited to introduce Al Trellis. I've been working with Al for a while, and Al is an industry veteran in the home building industry. He's been consulting home builders for over 50 years. He's an author. He's presented at IBS. He presents at maybe your local 20 club. Super excited to have you with us today, Al.
I'm glad to be here.
Great. To start with, you've been in the industry for over 50 years. Obviously, things have changed. I'm curious, when you think about the high-level changes that have happened, where have we been and where are we now in comparison?
So I think the changes in the industry would mostly revolve around consolidation and the growth of the national builders. When I first started working for the home builders in 1972, there were a lot more small builders. There was a lot more FHA activity in those days. There's still quite a bit, but a lot more then. I think the codes have changed. I used to do a lot of work on the codes when I worked in NHP. Codes have changed, but the number one factor would be the rise of the nationals, consolidation. We've helped several of our clients. I do a lot of my primary business is working with home builders, smaller to mid-sized home builders, as their coach and consultant. And so what we've seen is harder and harder to get lots. The whole government influence on the approval process is completely different in 50 years. We used to be able to find land, plan it, get it recorded, start to develop it 6 months, a year and a half. I have one project that it took 17 years.
Wow.
Typically it takes 3, 4, 5 years, depending on where you are in the country. There are still places where you can do it quicker, but in general, regulation is a big factor and consolidation. I would say those are the 2 biggest changes. On the product side, houses are bigger. People are a little bit more affluent in general. So the average house size has grown over the last 30, 40 years by about 500, 600, 700 feet. Air conditioning, almost everything in America is air conditioned today. When I first started, only about 60% of it was air conditioned, 70%. So more garages, bigger houses, smaller lots. There are parts of the country that are allowing smaller lots. Still a lot of the country, especially the Midwest, it's hard to get a lot approved less than 60, 70, 80 feet wide. But we do have parts of the country where we have 35 and 40-foot lots now. And again, that's really a direct result of costs, trying to drive costs down. The land and the land development constitute a significant portion of the price of a typical house.
Yeah. Awesome. And then I'm just curious, we've had some interesting interest rate stuff happen recently, but I'm curious, back in the 80s, you had insanely high interest rates. What was it like at that point?
So I was actually building in the 80s, and I had my first construction loan. I had $1 million construction loan on a redevelopment project in Baltimore. And the prime went to 20%.
Yikes.
So I was excited that I was getting prime, but when prime was at 20%, it was costing $200,000 a year for my $1 million construction loan.
Yeah.
So needless to say, we had our head handed to us. But, we've seen interest rates up and down. That's the worst I've ever seen. I think this is an important fact to state. Back in 2019, 20, 21, when interest rates were obscenely low, we had a huge number of people who refinanced. And this really helped put money in people's pockets. I mean, the average person doesn't realize when 50 or 60 million people refinance, and save $100 to $200 a month each, you're talking about putting an extra $5 to $10 billion a month into people's pockets.
Yeah.
And for many people, that's still there. That's one of the reasons why new homes have become a much higher percentage of total home sales, because many people are reluctant to sell their existing house because they don't want to give up their existing mortgage. They're kind of locked in.
Yeah.
And so as they've been locked in and fewer existing houses have come on the market, new homes have gotten a larger and larger share of total home sales. Typically, in the past, new home sales amounted to 9 or 10% of home sales. Recently, it's 27%,
wow,
28%. So there's a lot of dynamics. Those interest rates are not coming back, in my opinion, in my lifetime, which is not as long as it used to be. But in my lifetime, I don't ever expect to see 3.5% and 4% mortgages again. That was an aberration. I think it went on a little bit too long. I think it was part of the inflation was caused by that. There were lots of causes for inflation. But a whole bunch of people got a whole bunch of money that they didn't have out of the refinance. You see it in the apartments. How many apartment projects were built? You could build an apartment project, put equity in, not as much as you used to, and then get it right back out on the refi. So a lot of people were building a lot of apartments. Those were a little bit crazy years. Then you throw in COVID, and it was the last 6 or 7 years have been a little unusual, let's say that.
Yeah.
When you take the long-term perspective, one of the advantages of doing it as long as I have is you get to see the cycles, and it is a cyclical business.
Yeah. And then in terms of COVID, I mean, what do you see in terms of differences of floor plans and design now? Obviously, people live slightly differently with work from home and that kind of thing. What are you thinking out there?
So the jury's a little bit out about how far the work from home will continue. There's a lot of pressure to take it away, but I don't believe it ever goes back to everybody works all the time in the office. I think a certain amount of work at home is the norm. And there's a lot of dual income families where that second person has the kind of job where they can work at home. Not all jobs require you to go to the office. If you sell stuff on the internet, you don't need to be in the office.
Yeah.
But so the rise of the home office, the importance of the home office in house design. We do a lot of design. We own 700 or 800 copyrights on our houses. It's a rare house that I would design without some kind of brain space, mini study, pocket office, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
There's got to be a place in the house for at least one and preferably two people to work on their computer, work with their papers. But for almost everyone today, it's a computer, it's an iPad, it's a phone. I mean, I'm not a guy that likes to do a lot of things on the phone. I don't believe that a little screen like that works together with my imagination.
Yeah.
But whether you use a phone or I use my phone to make phone calls, and I try to get all my emails on my computer. But a lot of people that I work with, they get all their emails on their phone. And so that ability, even with a phone, sometimes you want to sit down and make notes. You want to have a desk. You want to have a working space. We build a lot of pocket offices where that office is 5 foot by 7, 5 by 5.
Wow, okay.
But you can get a 3 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot countertop in there, and that's what people want.
Yeah. It's something I've always admired in you is that you do call to make things happen. And so I think it's interesting now. It's all about email. It's all about these delays and all this stuff, but you'll just jump on the call and get it done within 10 minutes.
I think that's partly a generational thing.
Sure.
Just like I don't believe that print advertising is dead.
Okay.
It may be dead for people who are 25. It's not dead for people who are 65.
Sure.
But one of the things that my son runs my office, and I talk with him about this often. Sending someone an email is not the same as getting them on the phone and say, "Can you do that tomorrow?" I could send you an email. You may not answer till tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if I get you on the phone, I can ask you questions. I can hear your responses. I don't have to go back and forth. There's no time delay in the setting of expectations.
Yeah.
So I think there's a great role for the phone call that cannot be replaced totally by text messages, email, etc.
Yeah.
A text message is closer to a real conversation than an email because people, I think, respond quicker to the text. And one of the things I talk about and teach when I teach time management, or I've written about time management, is that just because the phone rings doesn't mean you have to answer. And just because you have a phone doesn't mean it has to be on all the time. Now, all my grandchildren and my children would probably argue with me, but sometimes I make a conscious decision to leave my phone at the house because I don't think you need to be available 24/7. That's the road to long-term mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Right? When you see people who are really stressed out, a lot of time it's because they don't know how to manage their own time. They sort of believe that everyone can manage your time, and there's an off switch on the phone. You turn it off, and nobody else can manage your time. So
yeah,
you have to not be afraid to do that.
I like that. So at the top, you mentioned the national home builders in terms of understanding this 50-year changes. I'm curious, a lot of small home builders out there might feel some pressure from the nationals. What do you think the weakness of the nationals are? How do you think about finding a footing? People. Okay.
They have cap. If you think about the things that it takes to run any business, it takes capital, it takes land. Well, if you're a home builder, let's say for any business, it would take capital, it takes people, and it takes a market. So let's assume that we're home builders, and there is a market. We need land, we need people, we need capital. The nationals can get the capital. They can buy up all the land because they got the capital to buy the land. But there's only so many good people around. And so when you see, there's an interesting phenomenon that I always sort of talk about. If you go to a city of the national builders, builder A is number one, builder B is number two, and builder C is number three. Then you go to another city, and builder C is number one, and builder A is number two, and builder B is number three. And you ask the question, well, why? And that happens all over. So you ask the question, why is that? Because all those national builders only have a limited number of good people.
Sure.
So when builder number A is leading in a market, it's because he's got one of his best people there. And when he's last in a market, because he ran out of good people and his worst person's there. And so if you think of people, or talent, I like to use the word talent. If you think of talent as a limited resource, and everyone's fighting for the real talent, no one builders can have it all.
Sure.
And so that to me is their biggest weakness. And also as organizations get bigger, typically their reaction time gets longer. And so one of the advantages of the small guy over the big guy is that he can turn the boat quicker. If you know much about sailing, if you have a bigger boat, theoretically you can go fast. In certain cases, you can go faster than a little boat on a straight line, but you can't turn as fast as the little boat can turn. So I think the greatest advantage the little guy has is flexibility. But if you don't take advantage of that, then you don't have an advantage.
Yeah.
We know we're not going to have more capital than they are. We can have better people than they are because we can offer a work environment that's different, that's more stimulating, that's more rewarding. We can pay equal or better than they do, although many of my clients sometimes struggle to accept that premise. The rumor is that when Al comes to town, he's going to convince you to spend money.
Sure.
But you have to think of it as an investment. Money spent on the right people is an investment. All investments are costs, but not all costs are investments. And so getting people to separate in their mind a cost that's just a cost from money spent on an investment is hard.
Yeah.
But once they realize it, they're willing to spend it because theoretically the investment comes back to you with dividends. Same thing with people. I was with somebody a couple months ago, and there was it's almost a year now. There was some real talent. I thought this guy was like really talented. I interviewed him for the builder, and I was like, we want to hire this guy. But his credentials and the job description did not match really well. I said, he can learn that. I said, the guy's got talent. We need this guy. Well, he's expensive. I don't care if he's expensive. This is a guy that can really help you.
Yeah.
And we hired him. And he's really helped us.
Of course.
And we've probably made $1 million off of him. Mm-hmm. And we probably paid him $30,000 more than the original plan. So I think that's a good return on my investment.
Pretty solid, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a good coach, and I think I am, if you're a good coach, you have to understand the game, you have to understand the rules, and you have to know your players, right? And so I have 48 clients across North America. Some we do only Zoom. The ones who've been with me the longest, we visit them and we Zoom. They go from $8 million a year to $500 million a year. They're in little markets and big markets. They're older, they're younger. They're the sons of builders, or they started off as a teacher. They're all different. They all have to be coached differently. But some of the rules are the same. Right? Some of the variables. There's only 4 ways to make more money in any company, right?
Yeah.
Those things, that doesn't change. And so if you understand those 4 things, and you can adhere to the core philosophy of the importance of those things, you can convince people to act a certain way if they're rational.
Yeah.
And if they're not rational, I don't work for them anymore. So
yeah.
That's fine.
All right, you brought it up. The 4 things, how to make more money. How do we do it for home builders?
Stop spending hours researching across 10 different websites and get instant answers on the RealTorch web app. With market updates sent straight to your inbox every month. Homebuilders across every market size in the US trust RealTorch to answer their most pressing questions. What do my buyers want? Where do they want to live? What can they afford? And what are my competitors' prices and sales volumes? If you're a homebuilder and want to learn more about supercharging your decision-making with data, go to realtorch.ai. Now back to my conversation with Al.
Okay, I'll give it to you in the right order.
Okay.
Because order matters. Number 1, you raise the price. Number 2, you lower your direct costs. Number 3, you reduce your overhead. And number 4, you sell more. If you talk to most people of those 4 things, which one do you think they come up with first?
I think that maybe they try to lower their costs or something.
The first one they always come up with, I want to sell more.
Sell more, yeah.
They're always like, I want to grow. What does that mean? I want to grow. They don't talk about what that means. They just, in their mind, grow means I sell more.
Yeah.
Now, there's a whole conversation about what that means, because I could sell more houses, or I could sell more stuff in those houses.
Sure.
So you could sell 50 houses without a lot of stuff, and I could sell 40 houses but have a real system to sell stuff in those houses, and I could probably make more money than you.
Yeah.
For 2 reasons. Number 1, I'm going to raise the average price of my house over yours, assuming we started at equal point. And number 2, the margin on the stuff is higher than the margin on the houses. So it's no different than when you go to the movies, they sell you a ticket, but they really want to sell you stuff at the concession stand because that's where they make their real money. Partly because they got to pay the people who made the movie 60, 70, 80, 90% of the ticket price to rent the movie.
Yeah.
Most people don't know that. And so it's no different than McDonald's. What do they want to do at McDonald's? They want to sell you a value meal and they want to supersize you.
Yeah.
What do both of those things do? They increase the average price of a sale. They sell you were going to buy a hamburger, but I sold you fries too.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I sold you a drink, which is the most profitable item there.
And it's also probably easier to, once someone has already bought in, it's easier to sell them on more.
It's
as
always
opposed to a brand
easier
new
to
person.
sell more stuff to an existing customer than it is to find a new customer.
Sure.
New customers, there's a cost to find them, to acquire them, to onboard them. Once they're on board and they're your customer, it's like, while you're here, you want to buy a widget? Yeah, sure. And I didn't have I had no cost to acquire the customer to buy that widget.
Yeah.
It's all, whatever I make on the widget, I made it. But you get a new customer, whatever I made, that's minus the cost of what it took to get them there, all the money I spent on advertising to bring them in.
Yeah.
If advertising brings X customers, then to get Y customers, I got to spend more money on advertising. If I sold more money to the original X customers, more things, I'd make more money without that advertising expense.
Yeah.
So number one, we want to raise the price. Why? There's something in economics called the consumer surplus. Have you ever heard of that term?
I have, yeah.
The consumer surplus is the money that a customer would have spent if you charged more that they didn't have to pay.
Yeah.
Well, most builders, most business people, they're afraid that if they raise the price, they'll lose the customer. So typically they sub-optimize on the price. They're selling at a price that's lower than the price that would chase away any customers. That delta between what you're charging and the price at which customers begin to leave, that's like free money.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Let's go get the free money.
Sure.
Number two, I sell you a product for $1. It cost me 80 cents to make it. I made 20 cents on the difference between my direct costs and my sales price. Then from there, we have to subtract my overhead and a whole bunch of other things. If I can lower the cost of that product, I'll make more money. So there's a whole bunch of strategies about how we do that. Many people refer to, there's a generic term for that, is value engineering on the product development side. On the purchasing side, we talk about buying right, bidding, all the words that we use to describe reducing the cost of the product without changing the product. That's the purchasing side.
Yeah.
They're related. The purchasing agent could say to you, if we would substitute this flooring for that flooring, they're equivalent, but this brand, this manufacturer, this distributor will sell to us for a little bit better price for basically an equivalent product. That's a way we reduce our direct costs.
Yeah.
And so that whole thing is the second, in my mind, most important. The third one, lowering your company overhead, that's kind of related to the second one in the sense that some of the things in our overhead we can also buy better. I could buy my phones from a different plan and save monthly phone bills. I could buy a cheaper car to run for my employees. I could move my office to a lower rent location. I can do things like that. But typically, the largest expense on the overhead side is people. And so when most people talk about reducing overhead there, they either talk about cutting people because they maybe don't need them, or because maybe they think they can be more productive with the people they have. This would be the AI tie-in.
Sure.
I mean, what is AI going to do for us? Well, some people are going to be replaced. Some people are going to be augmented. And some people are going to be unaffected. If you were a copywriter, I would be like really, really, really nervous.
Yeah.
Because the AI writes great copy. So if I had a marketing company with 10 copywriters and 3 editors, the new company has 4 editors and no copywriters, or 1, because the AI is writing most of the copy. Mm-hmm. And then the editors are editing the copy. So I would argue that in the description we just gave of direct costs or overhead, I just cut my overhead. If I was your marketing firm and I used to charge you X amount of dollars to do this, and I had to pay 10 copywriters and 3 editors, and now I only have to pay 4 editors and $20 a month to an AI program, I should be able to do what?
You should be able to cut some of your copywriters and...
Well, I already did that.
Yeah.
Now I should be able to do what with those savings?
Like redeploy them to grow more, basically.
Or give you some of it, Mr.
Sure.
Customer. In fact, that's the whole idea. I'm going to take that $50,000 of savings on your job that I used to charge you $200,000 for. I'm going to charge you $175,000. I'm going to give you $25,000 of the savings. Guess what I'm going to do with the other $25,000? I'm going to keep it, and maybe I'll redeploy it. Maybe I'll go to Europe. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. But it's my money, and I'll do with it what I want.
So you think about splitting it then. So the end client gets some benefit, and you also keep some benefit.
One of the great prognostications of AI is that in the end it will benefit the consumer.
Sure.
It doesn't benefit the guy who got fired, but when he gets a new job, he's also a consumer, and he'll be able to buy a widget for less money than it used to cost to make a widget because the AI helped us make the widget for less money.
Yeah.
And I have a little analogy I give. Like, two guys own car companies, and we both sell our cars for $20,000 a piece, and we both make them for $16,000 a piece, and we both make $4,000 on $20,000. So that's a 20% margin. Okay. Company A invests $1 billion to build a new plant, and I can make cars for $12,000. What do I do with it? Well, it cost me some money to make the plant, but in the end, I still have more money. I could charge $19,000 for my cars, still make more money, and the other guy, I'm going to get a bigger market share, or I'm going to force the other guy to come down to $19,000 to keep his market share.
Yeah.
Well, theoretically, if I saved enough, by the way, if I was a national builder who could afford to do this, I could lower the price to $16,000 and put you out of business.
Yeah.
Right? And once you're out of business, then what do? Take a wild guess.
Then you raise the prices
back to $20,000. Right.
Until the next one comes along.
And this is what happens in many businesses.
Yeah.
We'll go into a market, a big company will go into a market. To get market share, it will sell at a lower margin or no margin until it gets the market share. It's no different than what we accuse some other countries of doing when they subsidize their industries so they can sell their products here for less money than we can.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So that's number 3, cut the overhead. Then comes number 4, sell more.
Sell more, yeah.
And that's about whether you sell more houses or more stuff with those houses. You could open an insurance company and sell insurance with those houses. But mostly the time what we do is we open a showroom and we sell upgraded carpet and we have structural options. We call those together options and upgrades. The difference being an option is something that you can build the house without. An upgrade is something that's coming with the house, but you can buy different levels of it. That's the way I separate options from upgrades.
Yeah.
And they actually have slightly different strategies about how to be successful with both. And there are people who are experts on both. There are people who are experts on one or the other, etc.
Yeah.
Typically, the margins on them are different, for example. The margins on options are typically higher than the margins on upgrades. Do you know why?
The margins on options are higher than upgrades.
Because typically an upgrade is something that it's easy to compare the price.
Sure.
You want to upgrade from this appliance to this appliance, everybody knows what those cost.
Yeah.
You want to upgrade from this garage door opener to that garage door opener, we all know what garage door, you can get that price. But an option is a 4-foot extension out the back of the great room. How are you going to get a price on that?
It's not.
Well, there is a price you can compare it to. What is that? That's the price you're paying for the house.
Sure.
So you look at your house, it's 2,000 feet. I paid $400,000 for it. I paid $200 a foot. And he wants to charge me $150 for the optional extension. I'm not an expert, but that seems consistent.
Sure.
Right? But in reality, that last 4 foot on the great room probably cost me $70 a foot. So cost me $70, you're willing to pay $140, I can mark it up 100%. I can't mark up the difference between the one appliance and the other appliance by 100%. I can't do it.
Yeah, and also because the buyer can put in new appliances themselves or new lights or whatever, but it's less obvious how to do an extension.
Hey, Mr. Builder, what do you charge for a recessed light in the ceiling? I charge $185. $185? I saw it at Home Depot for $35.
Yeah.
How do you answer that? What's the response? Well, the response is, if you want a light in a box from Home Depot, it's $35. If you want one with an electrician, a 16-foot ladder to put it up in the ceiling, a building permit to allow me to do it, a warranty, a trim, a bulb, that's $185.
Yeah. And the peace of mind, right? You don't have to orchestrate all that yourself, right?
Or you can't.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have a 16-foot ladder? No, not really. Do you want to go up a 16-foot ladder? No, not really. At my age, I'm not going up a 16-foot ladder.
Yeah.
So And that all ties back to a whole discussion about pricing, which is another key item that people have to think about when they're business people.
Yeah.
Pricing. So I have these 15 functions of a home building company that I wrote about. And we could make them more, but that pretty much covers everything. One of my builders says that there's really like 18 if you look closely, but I combined it. Life sometimes is about making things simpler.
Sure.
One of my these are the 15 functions. One of those functions is pricing. And we believe that pricing is a strategic function, not just an ordinary function. Some functions are strategic: planning, vision, pricing. Those are strategic functions. Other functions, estimating is more of a tactical function.
Yeah.
This is the difference. I would never, ever let the estimator set the price. But I have people who do that. In fact, a lot of computer systems will tell you, if you'd like us to, at the end, we'll just put the margin on your cost and that'll be the price. And I'm like, what other stupid things are you recommending? Because that just doesn't make any sense. You need to think about the pricing. Pricing has to be logical. It has to be competitive. It has to be consistent. These are all facets of pricing that the machine can't do.
Yeah.
Machine can make a recommendation, but someone who knows what the hell they're doing needs to make the decision.
Yeah.
I have a rule. I never let machines make decisions. I let machines help me make decisions. Now, if we're going to talk about warfare and things that have to be split second on a destroyer with a missile coming at, 600 miles an hour, which, by the way, do you know how much that is in terms of feet per second?
Feet per second?
30 miles an hour is 44 feet per second.
Okay.
So 60 miles an hour is 88 feet per second. So 600 miles an hour is 880 feet per second.
Yeah.
So if that missile is a mile away, I have 6 seconds till it gets here. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I want a person in that loop about whether to shoot at it or not.
With two big buttons. Yeah.
I'll let the machine make that decision. But a decision about how much to price a house, no, that machine's not making that decision.
And I think that's what's interesting about home building is it's such a longer term process that you can really spend time thinking and curating your strategy before you even execute on it. You don't have that 6 second window. You've got a lot of time to really lay these things out.
Yeah, I was working with a builder just yesterday in New York, and we're pricing the next phase of lots, which we're going to release in 2 weeks. But we've been talking about that pricing for a month and a half.
Sure.
And even as of yesterday, it's all finalized except for like a few lots. We still have to decide which of those. There's a little debate about which of these 3 lots is the best. Because the best has to cost more than even though all 3 of them are the 3 best, within the universe of those 3 lots, there's a best and a worst.
Yeah.
Even if the worst is the 3rd best of all the other lots. And so that has to be finally negotiated between the sales team and management.
Yeah, and so you've talked a lot about, in your writings, about how you should always price your lots differently. You should really try to differentiate. So when you think about you're going into a new community, what's top of mind when you're pricing those lots? When you're thinking about how to lay this out, what do you think about there?
So you look at your costs, and obviously we need to sell the lots for at least equal to our costs, and preferably there's a profit. But we've seen scenarios, there are scenarios in the country, where a builder in a certain kind of market has to develop his own lots for almost no margin to get them.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't, the nationals will get them, or someone else will get them. And if you're making enough money on the house, maybe you're willing in certain circumstances to develop lots for very little margin. It's not my vision that when I have a vertically integrated company, parts of it make no money. But if the global conglomerate makes money, I may not have a choice but to say that this part's just not a particularly profitable part. About 7 or 8 variables that determine a lot price. The one that's the most common one is size. Width matters, partly because it costs me more money to make a wider lot, and a wider lot can hold a bigger house. But if I want to build small houses, a wide lot hurts me. Mm-hmm. If I want to build small houses, I want small lots to keep the price commensurate. If I pay a lot of money for a wide lot, put a little house on it. A, it looks stupid, and B, why would I pay for an 80-foot lot that only needed a 50-foot lot for the house? So there's that. There's the size, there's the width, there's the grade, does it slope? In most parts of the country, if you build basements, then a sloping lot if it slopes to the rear, that has extra value because your basement can have light in it coming from the back. Mm-hmm. If it's graded enough, it can have a door out the back, a walkout basement versus a view out basement. Some people call it view out or look out, versus a full basement where you're in the dark. Spiders are down there.
Yeah.
And if you're building if you're a slab builder or a crawl space, that slope hurts you because you got to fill it in or build a foundation. So a lot of it depends on what you're selling, what you're building. So grade, orientation, or as a general rule, certain exposures are better. People like light in the back. They don't like, especially if you're in a place where the western sun is hot. You don't want the western sun in your family room. If you think about orientation, think about view goes with it. Like in Colorado, if I can see the mountains, that's worth a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Right? Or if I can see the landfill, that's like the opposite of worth a lot of money. So view counts, trees count, wooded lots are worth, there's all these factors come into shape. You wouldn't think shape would matter, but it does. Because most people want rectangular lots. And the minute you get a pie-shaped lot, you can have a problem. You can have a benefit. Pies, what we call a pie is wider at the back than the front. What we call a reverse pie is wider at the front than at the back. People hate reverse pie lots. Mm. Why?
I mean, you have less like private space, basically. It's all out in the open.
Yep. Most people live to where? The front or the back of their house?
The back.
And a reverse pie, the back's getting smaller and smaller. Yeah. Could even come to a point. Like, what am I supposed to do with the part at the back that's 1 foot wide?
Yeah.
A regular pie is wider at the back. They like that. Bigger backyard. So typically pies bring premiums, reverse pies bring negatives. But these are all things that affect you. But most people, a nice rectangular lot, I understand it. It's straight lines. People like straight lines. You can never underestimate the power of the way people think. And there's a lot of things called cognitive biases that we consider. But people feel most comfortable with straight lines. So a nice rectangular lot, it's 70 feet wide at the front, it's 70 feet wide at the back. It's the same equal on both sides. I get it. It's kind of easy to grasp. You give them a funky shaped lot, like what am I supposed to do with this piece? And I don't really understand it, and it's confusing. And what does a confused buyer buy, by the way?
Something else.
No, he buys nothing.
Oh, nothing? Okay.
Confused buyer buy.
Yeah.
Well, not from you.
Yeah, exactly.
He may go somewhere else to look at something.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know what? I'm a little confused. I'm not going to buy this. Mm. So there's a whole thing. So, and then I have a strong belief that uniqueness matters. So I push my builders very hard to try to have as many unique lot premiums, as unique prices as we can. Mm-hmm. And it creates urgency, and it's logical. All pricing has to be logical. So if you went to the jeweler and I told you that the big diamond ring that you're looking at buying for your girlfriend for the engagement and the little diamond ring are the same price, what would you ask me?
Well, first of all, why? But I'd get the bigger one.
Would you? Or first you'd ask why?
Oh, yeah. Why are they the same price? Yeah.
Well, because the little one is a much better quality diamond.
Sure, yeah.
So now you got to decide what's more important to you. Bling or quality?
Substance, yeah.
Right. Well, bling has a substance all its own.
Sure.
But having said that, which one do you want? So most people, the first question is, what's wrong with the big? Is there something wrong with the big one?
Yeah.
Or they might ask, what's so special about the little one? Whatever. They're really asking you this question. Explain the difference to me. Not the difference in price here, but the difference in the fact that one's bigger than smaller. In other things that we go out and buy, the price is different and they want you to explain to them what are the reasons why this costs more. Here I'm saying, you told me they were the same, but they're different. What's the reason why two different things are the same price? It's the same question, just framed from the other direction.
Yeah.
So, and that gets you into a whole thing about benefits, right? We have a wheel that we made 25 years ago called, what do I call it?
Total product.
TPM squared, total product management and marketing. We believe that there are 5 main characteristics to a product. There's a physical characteristic, there's an emotional characteristic, there's a financial characteristic, there's a procedural characteristic, okay? Those characteristics can be divided up into aspects. On the financial side, the most obvious aspect is the price. But let's talk about something that costs more, but I finance it for you. We call that terms.
Yeah.
For many buyers, terms matters more than price.
Yeah.
Many things are sold based on the payment. A car. A lot of people buy a car that they wouldn't buy that same car for that price if they had to pay for it. But since you're financing it for me and I do have $400 a month, I'll buy a $40,000 car that I wouldn't buy if I had to cough up $40,000. And since you're making it so attractive for me, maybe I could sell it for $42,000. We're back to that conversation about raise the price. If I give great terms and I have a great product that fills a whole bunch of other things on the circle, you like the physicality of it, you like its functionality, you like all those things, then maybe I can get a premium price. Mm-hmm. Right? The myth, the lie is that first people look at price. That's only true for some things. For many things, it's not true at all. I bought a new computer this year. I told my son what I want. And the number one criteria was a physical characteristic. It has to be less than X amount of pounds.
Sure.
Because I travel all over. I'm dragging that thing around with me. For me, if it costs $200 more, but it weighed a pound less, I take it. So the myth that first I start with the price is baloney. First, people start with, does it do for me what I want or need? A good example, let me think of a really good example. I'm a mason, and I have to drag around. I'm a carpenter, and I got to put a lot of 4x8 sheets of plywood in my pickup truck. And the guy shows me this little Toyota pickup truck, and you can't fit the plywood in the bed of the truck. But it's really inexpensive.
Sure.
If you gave it to me for $1, if I can't use it for what I'm trying to buy it for, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
I got 5 kids, and you want to sell me the van with the bucket seats, the captain's chairs in the back. No, I need a bench seat for those kids. So a lot of it starts with functionality. It starts with, do I like the way it looks and feels? Then we talk about what's the price. If I could get the same functionality and the same look and feel from 2 products, I'll probably buy the one that's cheaper. Mm-hmm. But I'm not starting off with what's the cheapest truck you got.
Yeah, you start with your needs.
Most people are not. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, it's like a big rainstorm came. I happened to be in the store. What's the cheapest umbrella you can sell me? Because I may not even take it home.
Yeah.
That's like all price. So I've got this fantastic... Dude, I just need an umbrella to go from here over there. I'm not looking for a lifetime investment in an umbrella. So that's the case where price... Right. A lot of times with food, a lot of people will buy the least expensive thing that meets their needs, especially if they're on a budget, they're trying to feed a family. The name of the game is how much food can I get for the budget? So, I want some healthy choices, but given I'm going to trade some healthy choices for some economies. So that's what's going on.
Definitely. All right. Thanks so much, Al. This was great, talking about the macro level history of home building, about pricing and the 15 functions, as well as how to beat the nationals.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, the most helpful thing you can do is share it with other people who you think might enjoy it. Your friends, your team, anybody who comes to mind. Other than that, you can like and subscribe to catch our upcoming content. Make sure to put your questions for Al in the comments section below, and we'll ask him next time we have him on. Check the description for more information about RealTorch and to see what Al has going on.